is the Leon Charney Report. And now, here is your host, Leon Charney.
Welcome to another Leon Charney Report. We got a slam dunk tonight. Cidney Zion. Everybody knows Cidney Zion. He's ubiquitous. He's all, well, I guess he's one of the great, he's Mr. New York in a sense. He's now a columnist for the New York Daily News on Mondays and Thursdays, writes about any topic that suits him, and he deserves that right. He is, I don't know, it's like Jimmy Breslin and Pete Hamill and Cidney Zion. These are the characters of New York, right, Cidney?
Thanks for putting me in all that good company.
You deserve it. And we have Peter Malkin, the man who captured Eichmann. Remember, we had him on about 6-8 months ago. He wrote this book about his trials and travails. They were mainly Eichmann's, by the way, when Peter got a hold of him. And he's come back to discuss what's going on in the world of the Middle East today with Cidney. Peter, welcome.
Thank you.
Why does everybody call you Tzvi?
It depends what country I am. In Israel we call it Tzvi, and outside they call me Peter. It's difficult to call
Master of
Tzvi.
disguise.
Huh?
You know, Cidney, that he was, I checked, not that I have to check on him, but I asked a lot of my friends in the Mossad, around the Mossad, they say he was the best ever, and no one ran a department better than him, and he disguised everybody. In fact, he's not really here. He's in disguise.
We think he's Tzvi.
How did you two guys meet?
Zvika, who I call him.
We met a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
When we met.
Oh, 20 years.
20 years ago.
Something like that, yeah, right.
We're still friends, the churches.
Why?
Why? 20 years you can also not be friends. Right?
Cidney, you're a very good friend of Arik Sharon, and I assume you're still in touch with him?
I haven't talked to him for a long time.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's silent. I don't know what's going on, but I have not heard from him for many months, maybe a year.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How come Sharon is so silent? You were Sharon in the Lebanese War. You were one of his intelligence people.
Yeah, I met him about 3-4 months ago. Don't forget, I'm here, and he is coming very seldom.
Oh, that's true. I mean, it's just that we don't hear much out of him.
We can meet him.
But why is he so quiet? This is the man. First of all, I was in Israel when Bibi Netanyahu formed the government, and Arik was left out, and it was really a crisis there.
Yeah.
It was a big crisis, and he really structured. No, there's never been a minister of infrastructure in the history of Israel, so he structured this thing. He's got a lot of power over there. There's no question about it. But he's muted, as Cidney says, which is unusual for him, unless he's not feeling very well.
I have questions about all this power. What power? I mean, nothing's happening. I understand in Har Homa they're not even building. That Bibi hasn't built anything. He just announces it, gets all the heat from the world press and from the State Department here, and then nothing happens. They tell me in Har Homa there's no building. That there's no building anywhere. All you do is preparation, but nothing else ever happens, you know.
Preparation
we could build a city here before Donald Trump went over there tomorrow. We would have Har Homa if they let him. But you know, it's easy to build. It's easy to do it.
So, but you're saying something very important, Cidney. There's a lot of words coming out of it, but no action.
No action.
So
all words.
One of the members of the Likud last week was in my house, and he's a part of the coalition there with Bibi. He told me that, and this is a Likud man, who says Bibi has no strategic understanding about where he wants to go with Israel. All his moves are just tactical. They're just tactics. Do you agree with that, Peter?
Yeah, I agree with it because I believe that I think that Arafat is leading the situation in Israel, and I don't think that our prime ministers, and I include also Paris, have found out who's their enemy and how to act against him. I think they gave too much, he gave little.
Who's he? Arafat?
No, how do you call
Peres?
him?
Shimon Peres?
No, Shimon Peres gave a lot, and was a lot of disasters there with the buses and all this. Benjamin Netanyahu gives little, and I'm not sure, give or not give, if we have the policy what we want to do, and I'm not sure that anybody from all these politicians asked Arafat, what do you want? Could you tell me what do you want? What is how are we coming to an agreement? Because I don't think that Arafat ever made commitment what he wants, and we never asked him till the last thing what we want to give.
Well, Arafat has said many times what he wants, which is everything.
He wants a Palestinian state. He wants money.
Okay, but
if
he wants peace,
and he wants Jerusalem.
If he wants peace,
Absolutely.
you sit with him and tell me what you want, and I say no, so I don't give anything.
No, but nobody wants to know what he wants.
Well,
Why to give pieces before you know what's the end of this?
Let me ask two masters of insight here. Sidney, I've always said, and I've said on the show many times, that one of the real problems with Netanyahu, we're not here to bash Netanyahu, but historically, is that when he won the election, he knew that he had made promises to the right that he couldn't fulfill, and he was not going to speak to Arafat. So what happened? The tunnel exploded. He made problems there. Clinton got angry at him. His public relations was terrible. If he had called Arafat 24 hours after and said, look, Yasser, I got a problem here, and you got a problem, let's talk, the both of us, right in the beginning. We get people on here, we had the mayor of Ariel on here, who couldn't stomach the fact that Bibi so aggressively shook the hand of Arafat at the White House, not because it's a bad handshake, because it totally refuted what he said before. Now, we all know politicians, and we all know that they operate under a different code of understanding and ethics than most of us do. But I'm talking historically. If he called them up immediately and said, let's talk, would there be a different situation today?
I don't believe it.
I don't think so.
The problem is with the Israeli, or they love too much or they hate too much.
They knew, by the way, everybody knew about Har Homa. This was all over the Israeli press.
Right.
Everybody was attacking it. Most of the press in Israel is opposed to Bibi. So it was well known. So what would you have said to him? I'm going to start this. You got to keep quiet, schweig, because I'm going to do it. And he would do it. He would say, okay, I don't think so. No, there was a fake issue, I believe. I mean, I think it was a provocation to this extent. And a good provocation, because while Arafat is claiming every day, and the world press with him, that there will be a Palestinian state with the capital in Jerusalem, somebody had to finally say, no, we're going to build in Jerusalem. You don't have any right to tell us what we can do in Jerusalem. If that's a provocation, and I think it is, it's a good one, because you finally have to tell them, forget that. Now, if that then leads to violence, and we're then told that you can't do anything that might lead to violence, what you're doing is saying the whole thing, the whole Oslo agreement is nothing but blackmail.
Right.
And every time, that's why I always thought Jerusalem should have been first. But of course, if Jerusalem was first, there wouldn't have been a deal to begin with.
Right.
But that would have been fine, because I do believe the Arabs, they don't lie about this. I think the Labor government lied about it to the people of Israel, and I think Bibi maybe slightly. But they really did. They knew that in the end, some deal would have to be made, and they said they would not make that deal. Well, you know, if in fact the Israeli people, and I do believe that this is the one time, the one issue that they agree on, that they don't want to divide Jerusalem.
Right.
If that's true, and on the other hand, the Palestinian Arabs say, we will never make a deal without it, then why hand over the land of Israel until finally they get everything but Jerusalem?
What I said before.
And then the world will say, you got to give Jerusalem. That's what I think Peres had in mind and Rabin had in mind. I don't think that was honorable to do. And I think that's why Jerusalem should have been first, so we would know right away that there's no deal.
Sidney, you don't know how right you are. I'll tell you why. I got it directly from near the horse's mouth. One of the prime negotiators, I won't name him, on the Oslo Agreement, who worked under Shimon Peres. When I asked him, the question about Jerusalem, he said, we know that it can't be solved, so we're leaving it to the far end of things. And if you take your logic, it's absolutely, it was wrong. It was absolutely the wrong way. What was your...
There's another problem, I think, the big problem here. When you negotiate peace or not peace, giving back or not, you know that Bibi in all his policy with his friend, all this, are not going to give, they're going to give slices or nothing. And the other side is standing another group waiting to give. So what would you do as an Arafat? Wait or start the negotiations. They have a partner.
I think he's playing very smart.
The second partner is going to tell you, we are going, everything what they do, the other partner say, it's wrong. So he knows, wherever I wait, I'm going to get more. So the other side standing, the other group, in waiting to give. So I, as Arafat, said, I'll wait too.
Arafat is playing solitaire, in effect.
And he's doing it well.
There's nobody against him.
Excellent, he's the cleverest.
And he's got very good public relations.
The Jews have the worst public relations. We supposedly have the best, and they have the best.
It's an old story, Sidney.
How'd this happen, Leon?
How?
You're the best public relations man I know. Why'd you let this happen to Israel?
Why the Jews? Because the Jews have too many presidents, No one wants to be a follower. Everybody's a leader.
See what happened. When we wanted to make peace, let's say, with Arafat, okay, we went to deal with him. Why do you have to go to have this, Nobel Prize? What is it? Who needs the Nobel Prize? You want to go business? Make business. What's the Nobel Prize? And
you're also right, and people don't know it. They think from the air Nobel Prize comes. In order to get the Nobel Prize, Sidney, you got to lobby. It's a terrific lobby in Europe. All kinds of people have to be working for you. I discussed this with Jimmy Carter, who should really get the Nobel Peace Prize, and he never gets it because he's not European and he never lobbies for it.
Also, you have to be a war criminal, almost. That guarantees it.
No, to give to Arafat, a man who killed children, who killed so many people.
There's a guarantee.
To give him a Nobel Prize, I'm ready to deal with you on peace, but not to make him a Nobel Prize.
Peter,
man.
they didn't ask the mothers of Malat whether he should get the Nobel Prize today.
Yes.
I mean, this guy getting the Nobel Prize. Whoa.
Could you?
And I think that Shimon wanted him
he
to
lobbied.
have it.
He lobbied for it.
Well, what did Shimon do for it?
He lobbied.
And
Lobbied for all of them.
they all do, yeah.
Anyway, Shimon Peres was declared a non-political person.
Yeah, he's
this
out
week.
now.
He's out.
Yeah, right.
What do you think of that? Ehud Barak? You know Ehud?
I don't know about Shimon Peres. I don't believe he stopped. He would never stop, and I don't know. I don't believe he stopped. I know a little bit Barak. I really don't know how we're going to deal, but it depends how much he's going to risk, and if he follows the others like Peres. The problem is
he won't. Ehud Barak is much more right.
But there is a problem here. It is not who is in the other side. Our question, what we talked before, is Arafat, what is he going to give? And what is he going to accept? It is not important if it's Bibi or it's Peres or this. If he doesn't accept it, we are on the same stand. What are you going to do? It's only one way. We give him more.
Bibi said, we give and he takes. That's when he was running. That's when he was running. Now he's doing the same.
So who
Bibi's the interesting.
What is going to do Barak, let's say? What is going to do Barak?
I don't think he can do much more than what Bibi's doing.
He can't do, it's another phase with the same problem.
And they're both ex-commandos. He was head of the Sayeret, which is the great commando unit of the chief of staff, and and Bibi was part of that unit. They know each other a long time.
Only they would say he is a commander. He knows if he gives back, he knows it's not against security. That's all. Like with Rabin.
Right, they're all for security.
We give the same.
Sidney, what would you, on a 1 to 10 scale, what would you rate the Bibi's performance so far? How would you rate it? You're a pretty interesting guy.
I would put it, depending on what you mean by rate it in PR.
In terms of what he's doing well for the country, maybe you can't answer that because you're not an Israeli, but let's take the PR scene where he's supposed to be so great.
He's wonderful in PR, but then he doesn't deliver, so I would put him below the 5 on his performance for sure. He's interesting psychologically. I was for Bibi. I knew Bibi when he was here in New York.
Right.
And I think what is coming out every day more and more, I should have known it. Bibi really feels very comfortable with Americans. Bibi liked McMullins and Elaine's and joints like that. He is very uncomfortable with the guys with the yarmulkes, the people that really put him in. He's not happy with that. He needs them, but he doesn't love them. What he loves is Washington and New York and being
a player, an
being accepted here.
Israeli good-looking guy who's a player in New York.
And that means being accepted in Washington by Bill Clinton. And that means not necessarily a good thing for Israel. Now, I know you and I don't particularly agree on the way it should finally end up, but certainly everything he said in his campaign was the opposite pretty much of what he's doing now.
Right.
Now that's par for the course here, but here we have oceans between us. It's not life and death if a presidential candidate lies. It really is never. We have that great deal that we have here. We have the greatest country in the world, very safe, very big right in there. A real mistake could really do very big damage. And Peter told me, and he tells me now, and that's what scares me, because this guy knows everything he does about the security of Israel. And for the first time, about a year ago, and again he tells me now that he's really worried. He's worried about whether they'll be in Israel in 15 years.
A lot of people
That's something that's very scary coming from a guy like Peter.
All right, we hate to cut on a commercial note. We have to cut on a commercial note. We hate to. Sydney made a very bright analysis of Bibi Netanyahu. We'll come right back and talk more to the honest double team we have here. It's nice to have them. We're back. I'm Leon Charney with a great panel today. Sidney Zion of New York Daily News. That's where he writes now, but you were with the New York Times. He's written books. He's all over. He's, as I said before, he's ubiquitous. And we have Peter Malkin, the man who captured Eichmann, Yamach Shemo, right? And you remember his book. We talked about it once before on the show, but we brought Peter on today for his insight. And we have, by the way, Sydney wrote a column today about the Six-Day War. It's the 30th anniversary. June 6th, we're taping this. 30 years ago, Peter. Where were you on June 6, 1967?
Started on the 5th, by the way.
Secret Service.
Secret Service? It's called the Mossad?
Mossad.
Okay, you could talk about it. And you know what?
I don't know what to talk.
That's right.
Huh?
Everybody.
Did you know the war was coming?
The Sixth War didn't interest me so much because it was not like a kind of threat like the Yom Kippur War.
Well, this is before.
Yom Kippur.
But you
no, but this was
the Israelis were not. The Israelis were not worried. Only American Jews were worried.
I was nothing at all worried. I don't even remember exactly what I've done. I know I've done the routine work and all this, and it was more military. It was more.
Were you
more
in Israel or out of the country?
Out of the country most of the time. But when you talk about the Yom Kippur War, I was very involved, because it was a prolonged thing. The Sixth World War was a kind of a short thing, quick, and not everybody knew about it. You understand?
Well, the whole world knew about it.
Yes, but it didn't worry.
Matti Hud knew about it.
They didn't worry the Israeli too much.
It worried American Jews like so madly.
The 73 war, the Yom Kippur War, worried a long time because it was a question mark, and then when it didn't work,
I don't. You were too busy, but I think that Sydney is more correct.
He knows better.
I think the people were nervous. I mean, Levi Eshkol was trying to bring the government together. He had to bring Dayan in to stabilize everybody.
Right. Begin brought in Dayan.
My friend,
when he stopped,
friend Weitzman has
he was a big hero.
The big hero, but the whole argument when Yitzhak Rabin started with the Six-Day War with Ezer Weitzman, they had a terrific argument.
Oh, sure.
Ezer says in his book that Yitzhak Rabin totally collapsed out of nerves.
He did.
Yitzhak Rabin's story is that he was nicotine poisoned and he was overworked and whatever the story was. Both of these guys were my friends, I got to tell you. And when I got married in Israel, they signed my ketubah. And it's the only thing they ever signed on in their life, probably. And this thing lasted for the last 30, till Yitzhak Rabin died. They never got over that. The only one who knows the truth is Yitzhak and Ezer, because they were alone in a room. And
well, I believe
I've never seen Weitzman. I've been with Weitzman for about 25 years. I've been his attorney. I've been his close friend. I've been in Camp David with him. I've never seen him tell a lie about anything or exaggerate anything. I've never seen him exaggerate.
He was telling the truth about it. Whoever had nicotine poisoning, what is this? Of course, that's a joke. I think he did collapse. What I want to know from you is, what do you think made Ezer go all the way from the #1 John Wayne Hawk to the #1 dove in Israel?
The question was only one thing, if he had to tell it. That's not the question.
Well, he only told her when Sapir appointed Rabin as the prime minister.
That's right.
And he wanted to see if...
That's right.
I mean, this is not Paula Jones. This is a question of whether a man had stamina and courage and resolution to be a prime minister. He didn't do it to defame him. He did it because this is really what he felt. I must say, by the way, later on, I brought Rabin and Weizmann together. This story's out of the book. When Weizmann decided to run for president, I told Yitzhak Rabin that I think that he'd be a great president, and he was real recalcitrant. But after he won, I said, you know, Yitzhak, you two guys should really pull it together and work. And in a way, they did. Yeah, at the end, they got along pretty well at the end.
Now, why did Asa go from the right-wing hawk to the #1 dove?
Asa went through an evolution after his son was battered on the Bar-Lev line. Asa's son was hit pretty hard. He had about 9 or 10 operations, and he died a couple of years ago in a car accident with his wife. But I would say psychologically that evolution took place because he saw that he did it statistically.
So suddenly you can die.
He saw 6 million Arabs, and he thought, and a lot of generals feel that way, Sidney. You took Chaim Bar-Lev, who was a very close friend of mine, really close, always wanted to see peace. Most of the generals, a lot of the Mossad people, everybody, they push for peace.
Don't you think that they all want peace? I mean, I think the Israelis want peace.
Absolutely.
But I don't think you can get away from the old line that it takes 2 to tango. I think everybody in Israel wants peace. I think Arik Sharon wants peace. I would be amazed if he didn't want peace. He does.
He wants peace.
Sure he does. There's nobody that wants to have an 18-year-old kid thrown in there into mortar shells and die. Nobody wants bombings in the middle of Tel Aviv. It's obvious that you would not want that. So I think it's always a misnomer to talk about hawks. In Israel, in me, who I'm called, mostly people think they can't get over me because, I'm for civil liberties. I'm considered mostly on the left. But on Israel, I'm a hawk. So I say, you know what a hawk is in Israel? A hawk is a person who thinks it's a bad idea to have his children blown up in a bus on the way to school. Does that make you a hawk? Only in Israel you're called a hawk then. If you want to have peace inside your country and you don't want to have people threaten you every minute, then you're a hawk? I mean, I never heard of such a thing. It's madness. So I don't think it fits right wing, left wing.
Sidney, how did you feel after we did Camp David? What did you think? About
the Camp David agreement?
Yeah.
I was for the Camp David deal. I thought that worked out. I think that, it doesn't work out once that dies, is murdered, and then you have the coldest peace of all time. And maybe there was a mistake made. There's a lot of people that think so. When Begin agreed that there was self-determination for the Palestinians, which probably set the stage for all of this. However, at the time...
Well, you know how he came to that?
No, I don't know. You know, because you were there.
I know very well. In Poland, Peter, when Begin grew up, they had an autonomous sense of living, the Jews. Yeah. And this idea came to him, and then, as anything in law, you're a lawyer too, Sidney, everybody developed this thing into autonomy.
Right. Autonomy, right. I know about that, but there was a word, the self-determination.
Right.
Now, that's a little different than autonomy. And they've used that, to say, even Begin said it, and that created the groundwork for a future Palestinian state. So, I don't know.
You don't have any doubts. Do you doubt there'll ever be a Palestinian state?
I do doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it. Here's why I doubt it. Because I think that nothing is set if you leave it up to the Palestinians and that old line of Abba Eban, they will never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yeah, but Abba Eban on this show.
I know, he's all for it.
Arafat could declare a state tomorrow and he'd get 150 countries that recognize him.
He would get it, but he didn't get a state just because he doesn't. And what's a state anyway? If you're talking about a state that's a state that's really a state, then that state decides its own future. It decides on immigration. It decides, and it's never demilitarized. I don't know of any states that are demilitarized. There may be some somewhere out there.
The Netherlands, Antilles.
Right, but there's now. I don't think Israel's going to permit that, so it won't be a state. They may call it a state. I don't think it has to happen. I don't think it ought to happen. I don't like the idea that people like Abba Eban and him too, and all of them were saying when they were telling us telling the world that they were making this deal in Oslo that there would be no Palestinian state. So said Rabin, so said Shimon Peres. Now then, they turn around and say, now that the Palestinians have not fulfilled one obligation under Oslo, not one, now they have to have a state. What? How crazy is this? If you have a deal, it's a bilateral agreement like a contract, and if the other side doesn't ever perform, it's over. It's rescission. You have to be a lawyer to know that. Anybody knows that.
I had the mayor of Ariel.
And you are a lawyer.
Right.
Now, why don't they just say, after they killed 16 Jewish soldiers in that fake thing about the tunnel, after they used guns handed to them in what I consider to be a major league crime by the Labor Party, a crime, an unbelievable crime.
You mean giving
them
weapons?
Of course. And then they turn those weapons on Israeli soldiers. At that moment, that should have been the end of the deal. You just say, that's it. Until you now do everything, to every single jot and tittle that you agreed to, you do. We don't even discuss this anymore, but they didn't do it. And I think that it was a disgrace. And I think that it's not just the guns they gave them, but they got, as you told me, and as everybody's telling me, Gaza is loaded with arms, that they have bunkers now in Gaza, that they have taken in arms from all over the world, that they have anti-missile missiles, they have everything. This is done in the name of what? Of what? I mean, where did these guys, where did Shimon Peres get the chutzpah to decide that his dream would have to come true, and it turns into a nightmare for the Jews? And I think there's a good reason why he's worried, and he was the first to tell me. I did this piece maybe a year and a half ago. He said, for the first time, I'm worried. Look what they've done. They're not concerned about security. And you have to. How can you not be concerned about security? You have a dream, and that's it. And then you turn this over to them, and they don't do anything. And in the
Peter,
end,
what do you
over.
say?
I can't understand where you make a deal when.
Well, let me ask you a question first. Do you care if there's a Palestinian state?
I don't care anything that you can deal with it. That brings peace. I don't mind the name, because if you don't call it Palestinian state, call it something else.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure the Palestinians understand also state
right.
or not. If it brings peace, and I'm sure about it. And I said before, what makes me crazy, that I want to ask Arafat and the other people, what do you want? I want to hear what you close about it. If it's right, we continue. If it's not, I don't want to give them anything. I've never heard, when I'm going, remember we talked about, I'm going to sell my home. I make a deal. You give me, I said, I know what's the contract, I know what's written. Here is half a contract, give, and then they make another half a contract, give, and you never know what is the limit of giving. Tomorrow he will tell you, I want Jaffa, and you couldn't say anything, and because you didn't close anything.
And the Galilee.
Wait, let's close an agreement. You don't sell your home if you don't know what he pays you and what is the agreement.
All right, Peter, I'm not going to sell my home. I'm just going to cut for commercial. We'll come right back to you. I don't want to interrupt you, but commercials pay for it. Payne Weber gets angry if we don't play him every time. We're back. We got a slam dunk panel today. We have Peter Malkin, the man who captured Eichmann, wrote a book about it, and you can see it on the fax machine if you want to get a copy of this book. And Cidney Zion, who's writing for the New York Daily News, and I keep saying it every segment, he's ubiquitous. He's all over, and he's brilliant. He's a very bright guy. You want to ask me a question, Cidney?
I want to ask you about the Swiss banks.
The Swiss banks.
What's going on there?
I met a president of a major bank in Switzerland who's Jewish, and the bank is Jewish. And he said to me, Leon, if you could do me one favor and call off the D'Amato investigation, I'd be a pretty happy man, because this is leading to anti-Semitism in Switzerland, and it'll spread all through Europe. You're a man who was disguised all through Europe. Do you think it's true or false? Or is he trying to save his bank?
No, I think it's true, but who cares what he says?
No, well, I don't care what he says.
I don't follow the bankers.
The price of it, he said.
And if we are going to sell all the time, if people will hate us and we will sell our morals, because and we start to sell so it's a close thing. You don't
Sounds like
do
we've heard
anything.
that song before
In
about
World
it
War
can't say
II.
anything.
Right.
What does it
Say
mean?
anything.
You know that the Swiss did something else. They're going to give about 800 million for poor, for others, and all this, and I don't know what billions. Please give back the money that you stole. What is the big thing about here?
This is a
What
really
is
important
it?
thing, right? I mean,
It's the whole thing. You took money, give it back.
This is
And
stolen
I have to
money.
listen to somebody, the Jewish banker, that he wants to save his bank or himself. So if you think it's
By
wrong,
the way, he can stop all talk about anti-Semitism by giving back the money.
get out of Switzerland and fight it. You want to live in Switzerland to be a banker, and even some people died, took out their teeth in the gold and all this, and you accept it because if not,
Are you on a commission now for that?
no, I was in the committee. I'm still in the committee of in Israel to get back the money. But the problem is, it looks to me like now, if you move one leg of a bank, all Switzerland falls.
The whole banking system.
The whole
has
bank
problems.
system falls. It looks like it's so connected. The
Well,
system.
the problem is not that. The problem is U.S. banks. And the problem is that the United States banks were involved, and the problem is that the Rockefellers were involved with the Chase Bank during World War
Well,
II.
then that's very
and
important.
many people
were-
doesn't want to change
And
it.
that will happen when the CIA files are open, and some of them have been opened. You will see that the United States banks and a lot of people around the United States government were involved, and this will cause a collapse. It can cause a collapse of the whole banking system.
Well, I don't believe that.
Well, that's what they'll say. I don't think
So
they
therefore,
will.
Show this way.
all they got to do,
It's not
all they got
to.
to, by the way, they spend more money on a couple of big bombers, you know. All they got to do is to say, okay, let's quietly give the money. And then they don't have the problem.
Well, they're not that
They don't want to give the
Sidney,
money.
that's-
Yeah, they
no.
don't want to give the money
They are
either.
not that
you
smart.
know.
They live in some kind of nirvana. You remember the law of Eschatz from your law school days?
Sure.
Law of Eschatz means that if you don't claim money after a certain amount of time, it belongs to the banks.
Yeah.
The
state or the banks, right, both.
The state, and ultimately it comes to them. And I think in Switzerland it goes
After
right to the
50
banks
years.
because there's no Eschatz. Eschatz means it goes to the banks.
Right.
But here it goes to the banks. The off the books balance sheet of these banks is humongous. I mean, they are tremendous. You don't even know how big they are. It's unbelievable how big these banks are. And I think Sydney's right on that score also, that if they would do it and do it quietly, they would get rid of it. And it would help everybody, because one thing we know for sure, that the Jews are going to have a lot of problems dividing that. Every Jew is going to have a committee, and every sub-Jewish committee is going to have another committee, and he's going to say he wants it. It's good. I hope it doesn't come to that, Sydney, but you know, it's a fair possibility.
Oh, for sure.
But
Knowing
first
our brethren.
we're talking about people that have their names, they have a
Well, that
legal
wouldn't be a
As a matter of fact, you could even get really cynical about it and say if they really want to destroy the Jews, they'll give them the money and let them divvy it up.
It's the old story. If the Arabs let the Jews live in peace, right, and it would take
You
them
want to
over.
know, by the way, you ask all the time, what do they want? You know what they want. But I can tell you a great little story that I had during the Intifada, and at the end of it, people don't want to remember that the Intifada was practically over when they resuscitated Arafat. Sure, the thing was very little. There was not much going on by that time. But in any event, while it was still going on, I was in Israel, and the army told me they would take me on a raid. Well, they wouldn't take me at the end. They made me get up 2 in the morning, but then they took me to Ramallah to a little school yard there. And while I was waiting around for them to bring in people, one of the guys from Army TV said, I want you to meet somebody. Went out, and there were 2 guys standing there, 2 Arabs. And one of them spoke English, the other didn't. And the guy that spoke English had gone to Oklahoma State, and he was a construction engineer. And the first thing he told me was how he didn't like Arafat. And he was a King Hussein man. He didn't believe in anything they were doing. But the Israelis must understand that Arafat is what the people want, and a deal will have to be made with Arafat. Okay, right. And I asked him a few questions, and I said, by the way, I said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, his son just got arrested, and he's, I said, you want me to fix it up so nothing happens to him? I'll go in, I'll put in a contract for you. He said, no, nothing will happen to him. It's nothing, he'll be out of there soon. And then a couple hours go by, now the cameras finally show up, and they bring me out again. I don't know what's going on. All I know is all of a sudden on my television with this very same guy who would have been asking me about how's Frank Sinatra, how's Oklahoma State doing in football, all that. He loved America, all that. So now he says, my son, no, not the other guy, my son is in there, they broke his ribs this morning, the Israeli soldiers, like that. And Mr. Thyssen, and I figured, well, maybe he's going to get killed. I better not argue with him about that. The next thing is, I said to him, well, then finally I say something. I said, well, maybe the problem is Arafat. Maybe that's the thing, we could have peace if there was. He said, Arafat is our hero forever. I love Arafat, Arafat. So again, I think, well, what do? So then, I don't want to kill the guy, right? So then, he carries on, and finally he said, wait a minute. Now, what do you want? What do the Palestinian Arabs want? What kind of a country do you envision here? Now, he had said before, and he said the same thing now, a small country, we don't ask for much, we're not greedy people. And I said something like the 67 borders before the war, even less. We understand the problems of Israel. Same thing as he said before. And then I said to him, so then do you renounce Jaffa? Renounce Jaffa! Never! Never renounce Jaffa! Then I said, do you renounce Haifa? Haifa's Arab! Do you renounce the Negev? When I got to Jerusalem, I thought he'd go right to the sky.
You did.
So now, these guys are bug-eyed, the TV guys are bug-eyed. So this is the greatest show. I said, it's the greatest show that will ever hit the cutting room floor. It'll never be on television. They said, no, absolutely, the producer. I said, no, you don't understand. The mistake of Begin was he allowed you guys to keep in there. You still have the old Mapam and Mapai and all. They will never allow this to go on. It'll be on Friday night on primetime. I said, well, I'll tell a few of my friends, but I'm not going to waste my time. Of course, not a word ever got on. But that's what they want. All you have to do is ask them. You say, do you renounce? You know what? When I told the story to some of those my Peace Now friends, they said, why did you provoke him like that? Why did you ask him those questions? You see, there you are.
They don't want to hear. They don't want to listen to it.
Of course, they don't want to hear it because it means to the Israelis, the truth means you'll never have peace.
Let me
that drives them crazy.
People they know.
Let me ask you a wily question now. Is Paula Jones going to affect Israel?
This is the best question of all time.
Who?
Paula Jones.
Paula Jones.
Have you met Miss Jones? That's the only question everybody's asking all over the world.
Well, let me bring it forward.
I don't know.
If Paula Jones weakens the Clinton presidency, Clinton is the man who's in the middle of the whole business of Oslo. You got a Chad Gadyor here.
I think that the Mossad probably set Paula Jones up right. You see that? Did you do this?
Did you set up Paula Jones?
What?
He doesn't even.
You know the story?
The only one that doesn't
I know
know
the story about the woman.
Right.
Right.
I don't
Cindy,
know.
you think this will affect him, his presidency?
I don't believe it.
It seems that nothing does.
He's
I mean,
Teflon.
it is unbelievable. He's still up there, 57%.
They already found
Everybody
what she's
understands.
done before, and they don't.
They don't really. Nobody seems to care very much.
The
He's
country-
overreacting.
Well, the economy is good. People are happy.
And when that's good,
That's
almost
good.
nothing bothers
Everything
him.
She
goes
also
up.
talks for herself.
What?
Look, what woman would fight all the time about this kind of thing?
No, well,
How
she's
many
a-
women?
yeah.
Well, we want to get in lawsuits here, so I don't
How
want to
many
describe
women?
women?
it.
Tell me.
Well, whoever,
We don't know.
maybe
We don't-
more now.
We have no idea.
All I know is that I don't think that it will. It's not. You never know. The one that might finally, if one after another thing happens, it's like a guy
get
at
to
the
him.
bar, and I've seen guys, and you have. They can drink all night. They can drink everybody under the table. They take one last sip and they're down. So you never know if that'll ever happen. It could. It's always possible. I doubt it. I don't think Clinton will be destroyed by Paula Jones.
No.
And I don't know how they can work out a deal. I doubt if they can.
They can't.
And I don't think
The
it'll.
moment they
they can-
admit they did it.
So
No,
if
no,
you
they-
admit you did it, he'd still
Doesn't
be
matter.
all right.
It's one week story and it doesn't mean anything. He's right. And what we see is we see all these talking heads from Washington go on Sunday programs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The McLaughlin Report, Meet the Press, everybody. But the country out there, and if you travel the country, they love what's going on because they're working and the stock market's
Sure.
up. And when people are happy, who cares about
By the way,
Paula
one of the
Jones?
big problems you just said, one of the reasons nobody trusts the media is that they run all those shows out of Washington.
Right.
The very people inside the Beltway who don't have any idea what's going on are the only people that speak.
That's
So naturally nobody trusts them, you know.
That's right.
They don't even bother to come to New York. None of us guys ever get on. We don't know anything, right? Only Cokie knows, and this guy knows, and the guy, that crowd that talks to them every day. Macon always said, and he was really my alma mater, it didn't matter what school I went to, H.L. Macon was where I learned everything. And he said, never, ever get to know politicians if you want to be a reporter, because they're charming, and you're human, and you might get to like them, and then you can't be a reporter anymore. So I don't know any of them, even here.
No one like this.
I know Rudy Giuliani, but I make sure I don't speak to him much because I don't want to be at his parties. The minute you do that, I knew him before he was a politician. The minute you do it, anything can happen. And that's Washington.
Absolutely.
All of those Washington, they sit around Georgetown parties, they go to their cocktail parties, they all talk to each other, and that's why the country has nothing but contempt for them, because they don't think anything like these people think.
It's true. Also in Israel, by the way, the reporters are very cozy with the
Oh,
politicians. Your friend Uri Dan, you know?
Well, that's okay. That's different because he's on my side. Never knock Uri Dan, the president.
Uri Dan said that, look, he has so many troubles, so many enemies.
Who?
Uri.
No, Sharon. I said, I'm his friend.
Nobody knows who Uri Dan is. He's a writer who follows Arik Sharon for
and
the last 30
he
years.
declares he wants to be a friend, and he pays, he knows what he pays for it.
Well, I helped Uri Dan. There was a terrorism conference in Sharm el-Sheikh a year or two ago with Shimon Peres, and I was there with this show as part of the White House crew, and we followed him around, and it was interesting. And Uri Dan comes bumping into me. He says, Leon, you got to help me. I said, what's the problem? He says, we get no food out here. The Israeli press was being isolated. So I took him with me. Nachum Barnea was a very big reporter with the Idiot, and Shimon Schiffer. This was in Sharm el-Sheikh. They were being held by the Egyptians in a certain quarter. They couldn't get any food. So I fed Don, and we became friends. Otherwise, I was Weitzman's guy, and he was Sharon's guy. So in the 80s, it wasn't
could be very
good.
nice.
He could be very charming when he wants to eat. I got a big problem, Sidney.
Yeah.
The Union of Orthodox Congregations gave an award to L'Oreal. And L'Oreal, I don't know if you know much about it, it's really a built and infiltrated country. And they came to me to take an award, and I want to resist it. Do you think that's correct or incorrect?
Sure.
Yeah?
Absolutely resist it.
What do you think, Peter?
If they're going to give it to that, you never
For sure
go near
not.
that.
For sure not. If they gave it to him, you know, it
He must know everything about
shouldn't be
it.
the same line. No way.
I mean, how did they do with him?
Peter, you've been in
money.
France, I'm sure, under one of your disguises. You know, the election just occurred last week. The communist socialists got in there. Any danger to Jews with that type of election?
I don't believe the way in France.
Yeah.
I don't believe. Look,
They
the
were
French,
anti-Semite, no,
I want
stay
them
that
to
way.
be the same thing because the French, there's many that don't like Jews. It's not. It doesn't start now, but it's some kind of. There's no violence to Jews. There's no violence. Hate, yes. Hater, yes.
You know, I once had the Polish.
No sympathy, but
I had
no
the
killing.
Polish ambassador to the United Nations, a very nice guy, on this show about 2 years ago, and he said to me, "Anti-Semitism is indigenous to the culture of the country." You
Sure.
understand?
That's going
Indigenous
all the
to
time.
country.
Poland. You know.
All the time there.
Poland.
Yeah,
Poland.
Jabotinsky said in Poland it's like snow falling. He said it's so natural for them to be anti-Semites.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
not so different in France either.
They don't deserve prizes from Union of Hebrew Orthodox Congregations, and maybe they did tshuva, maybe they repented, and maybe they did all these things.
They're
But
giving Stucker now.
there was a book on this by Michael Ben Zohar. He was on my show about the whole thing, the L'Oreal thing.
The one who writes about Bingo Young.
Yeah, Bibi is now in trouble or not? Will he be set aside?
You never know. It could be even with Barak, he will win the election.
Well, he's got 4 years to go.
Even I said.
Will he go down on a Baron affair? Is he finished with that?
In Israel, it doesn't work like this.
How does it work?
In Israel, it works like the football. I like the black and he likes the white. It's nothing to do with what happened in the country. There's no way that the religious will ever vote for Barak. Forget it.
You believe that?
Yes. They always will choose the side of the one who will promise them who will be the right side. No way.
Nor will
way.
anybody give up their
so
seats.
It's very difficult.
There's talk, by the way, Sidney, I heard it last week, that, there was talk between the Labor and the Likud to try and impeach Bibi with 80 Knesset votes, but I don't think it's real. We got to cut for a commercial. We'll come right back. We're back. I'm talking with Peter Malkin, the man who captured Eichmann and wrote a book about it and did a lot more things in his life than capture Eichmann. And who else but Sydney Zion, who's got opinions, and usually they're fairly correct. And we don't disagree that much. People think we do, but Elliot Gordon does, but we don't. Peter, can Bibi be impeached?
I don't believe it. Because it is not only Bibi. You have to remember all the time, the people have to impeach him is also, they will lose their chairs.
Right.
And that is not working in Israel.
New government.
No way.
How much influence does Rabbi Shach of the Shas party have? And how much influence does Aryeh Deri have?
I think they have a lot of influence because it's always like this, the two big parties, they balance themselves. And they always the question, the small parties, where if they go to the right or to the left.
All right, what happens if Aryeh Deri, who's under indictment for 100 counts of who knows what, is convicted and goes to jail? Is there an uprising in the country?
No, I don't believe it, but there will be a lot of problems. Wouldn't be uprising because after all, even the religious, they believe that the jury or the system is not corrupted. But
I'm not sure that's true. Dershowitz was on here the other day.
But when it happened that he was indicted and the others were not, you know, in the time so they start to think it's always to run over who is white and who is not white. It could happen, but I don't believe it will be a revolt because.
You know what the difference would have been under the Sapir regime is that no one would have ever even been investigated. You know how many rabbis were doing deals then, and Sapir, if it got bad enough, would have said, "Look, all right, now I don't want to hear about you for 2 years. If you do anything more, there'll be tsaras." But no one would have even investigated them. So the hypocrisy of labor is hilarious and all this. The real problem, the fundamental problem that they have not solved and was caused really by labor and Ben-Gurion was that they didn't separate the synagogue and state, which is what they should have done. And then they wouldn't have these kind of tsaras here. This is really bad. I don't think it's good for religion to have rabbis on the payroll, and it's not good for the state either. It's a very bad thing.
When I was first going to Israel, I was enigmatized by the fact that the religious party could make a deal. You could drive the bus in Haifa on Shabbos, but you couldn't drive it in Jerusalem. I mean, how they made if you're religious, you're religious. If you're not, you're not.
Well, Peter Bergson predicted all this in the constitution.
Hillel Cook.
Yeah, Hillel Cook. And he said he tried to do that. He tried to have them. They were supposed to set up. I had
his professor on here, Agassi, who's a great philosophical professor. He was on the show. We taped him in Israel, and he and Bergson talked together. You know Agassi, and he's a great philosopher.
For Peter talking to him, I'd like to have that. Look, here's what he said in that first Knesset, the Constituent Assembly, which made themselves the first Knesset illegally, really. But he said, if you go this way, one day, a guy from Brooklyn will determine your fate.
Really?
If you do that, right. And then this is 1949, he also said, what we are now is a theocracy run by atheists, you know, and that's all that was. And if fundamentally you're on sand like that, one day it's going to go bad. And this is what happened because Ben-Gurion did not want Cherut in the government, so he took the rabbis in order to keep back Cherut because he needed a coalition. He said, well, if I have him, I'll control him. Yeah, he'll survive it, but will the country? Now, I'm hardly anti-religious, but I don't believe, and I know many great rabbis who don't believe, that it's healthy for the Rabbanim to be part of a government. That's a religious state we're not supposed to have. They shouldn't be there.
What's your opinion about the law of return with the conservative reform? What's your opinion on that?
Here's my opinion on that. Anybody who says he's a Jew is, to my mind, a Jew. We had enough trouble in this world that we don't have to start separating people that way. I don't believe that they have the final knowledge, those people in the part, and it's only a small part of the Orthodox community who says that. I don't believe that
Yeah,
they're
but they're holding up the
ones.
Knesset. They're
They're not. I mean, that was the rule that Ben Gurion put in.
Status quo.
All that happens is that you either have the status quo, or you have another internal war, and it all just goes to prove they shouldn't be in the government. I don't think it's a big deal right now. It's a big deal for the Reform Conservative. They want to change it, but it didn't just start.
Let me say something.
I would change it myself.
Let me tell you what I did. I worked very hard. Asa Weitzman asked me to get very involved in Sharansky's freedom.
Right.
I worked very hard for it. I went to President Carter. Carter took it up to Brezhnev. The man in the middle of that was a fellow named Bob Lipschitz, who was a Jewish reform man and a wonderful man.
Sure.
He worked laboriously on that. Now Sharansky's in the Knesset. He has the ability to vote or not vote against it. He becomes Mr. Moralist for the country. But as a political, to keep it politically happy, he goes along with the gang. And I find that very offensive. And because this Reform Jew I know worked very hard. A lot of people work for Sharansky. No one knows how he got out of there. But I know this guy did it, and he was the counsel to the president. And he's a bit offended, and he wants to be very involved.
He should be offended. And everybody that's not an Orthodox Jew but is a Jew,
right,
it ought to be offended that they're third-class citizens or whatever in Israel. It's an outrage. It shouldn't be. And I mean, what is this that you can't come in there? I mean, you can come. They won't look. Don't say. Don't look. Don't tell. Like the homosexual rule in the army. So if your kid was not converted, if you married a woman who wasn't converted properly the way they say, then literally, your son should not be in Israel, but they don't look. Now, that's not a good thing. I mean, I think that since we have most American Jews are reforms, you're going to cut them out? Right. I mean, I know they always go back to the Bible. There's only 20% were always there from the beginning. Only 20% wanted to go in the land of Canaan. I don't think that's too relevant in this issue, you know? People want to be Jews. They're proud to be Jews. The way they daven or don't should not determine whether they're Jews or not. I don't think.
Peter, what do you think?
I think that our problem is more between the right and the left. Left is not religious. In the long run, I don't know how it will come out. Really, I don't know, because everything is boiling now. Yeah, you never know how it will come out.
It's true.
And nobody knows how strong it will be. But I look on the right, on the left. When Sarid started. When it's a kind of a conference, he all the time, with this declaration, helps Arafat more than anybody. He all the time said what's wrong, this conference was not good, and he in a way signals him what he has to get.
So does Dedi Zucker.
So that's what happened all the time from the leftists, that they give advice to the opponent, to our opponent.
Let me ask you
it never happened again. It never happened the other way.
Peter, let me ask you a very tough question.
Yeah.
If there could be peace in Israel, do you, as an Israeli citizen and a great Israeli citizen, care if East Jerusalem is given to the Arabs?
Okay, my philosophy is like this. If you bring it, I believe in life. I believe in people. I believe that the most important thing is that there will be no killing anymore.
Right.
Because in the long run, if we don't come to any conclusion, we say, that's your land, you're going to die, you're going to give your children all this. Some people will say, okay, that's our life, we're going to continue. I, for peace, and I will be sure it's peace. That's what frightened me, that I'm not sure that with Arafat we can make peace. I don't believe this man.
But if it was Herbert Samuels and he was an Arab, would you give back?
Because in the moment it's peace, you're not afraid of borders.
Well, the peace will come with the Mashiach.
What are you afraid of borders?
Sidney, you're viscerally, I assume, opposed to that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't, look, I'm opposed to giving anything. I never say give back because it was never theirs. We should never say give back because they never had it.
I don't say give back.
People say it all the time. The point is not you. The word just comes naturally to people. It's not true. The point is, you give nothing for terror, and that's what this is. It turned into land for terror. It was never considered to be peace in the way we would look at the word.
What Peter is saying, for real peace.
He says, for real peace, if you really had peace, where everybody loved each other,
people coming
then could you put
cares
another
about
flag?
borders?
Well, no one would care, but that's the world we don't know about. And certainly as far away from this world in Eretz, that's the furthest away. Sure, you can say that anywhere. If you have real peace and people love each other, you don't even have to have passports. When did we have a world like that?
Sidney, it's a pleasure. We're out of time. The last word, I got to vote with Peter on this one. I say anytime you can stop killing and live together, and I guess Sidney means that, you should live together, border schmorders, at least the kids don't die, and that's really important. We'll see you next week, and we thank the boys for coming on. We hope to bring them back again. They're a great panel. And I like Peter's English. It sounds good.
Thank you.